Hello, friend.
When it comes to loving someone, there is a huge difference between intent and action. It's easy to think that you love someone, to feel it or even believe it, but if you're not backing up that intention and emotion with action, then can you really say that you love them? With this video, I'm showing exactly why love is so much more than just how you think or feel, and why it's so easy to think and believe that you love someone without loving them in reality. Welcome to Philosoul. My name's Ollie. I have a giant glare in my face. Love is one of the most deep and broad and important topics that we can talk about, probably the most important. That being said, this particular video is a pretty practical but profound lesson that I've had to learn, and I've experienced this on both sides. I've not only done this, but I've had this be done to me. The intention of love versus the action of love. And this may be pretty obvious to some, but I've seen so many people not be conscious of this, including myself at certain points. And I've seen this all my life. Basically, love is more than how you feel, how you think. It's more than an emotion. It's more than your intention, which I think is what really trips up a lot of people. They have an intention to love somebody, and then they don't really follow it up with action. See, it's easy to think that you love somebody if you care for their well-being, you admire them, you want them to do well, you feel good in their company, etc. And those things are definitely indicative of love. And on some level, most of us feel that way about many people, possibly even, most people. I mean, most of us, when we're level-headed, even people we dislike, we still don't necessarily wish harm on them, and we still would like for them to have good lives. Many people feel that way about their boyfriend or girlfriend or spouse, for example. They think that if you don't ultimately wish harm on somebody and you ultimately want somebody to be happy, that must mean that you love them, right? But think of it this way. Do you love them? I want you to ask yourself and be genuine and honest with yourself. Think of somebody that you love, that you feel that you love, you believe that you love, and ask yourself, do you love them? As in action. What do you do to love them? Not just feeling. Instead of focusing on how you feel about them, focus on how you make them feel. That is loving somebody in action. And, of course, when we say we love them, we need to be mindful. What are we talking about exactly? It can mean intent, it can mean how you feel, or it can mean action, what you do to show love. And, of course, in relationships, loving relationships, whether it be like spouses or parent and child, friends, whatever it is, to put effort into loving somebody and they're not giving that back to you, that's not healthy. And to put effort into somebody when you don't really feel anything for them, that's also not very healthy, and it can really drain you. It's not to say you should be a jerk to people you don't like or have feelings for, but you do have to be conscious of that, and that's really a whole other topic, but it's important to mention here. But that's not really what I'm focusing on right now. I just wanted to point that out because I don't want anybody to be confused about what I'm saying. Anyway, moving on. For example, I always believed that I loved my siblings. I have 2 brothers and a sister. And because I viewed it that way, I felt that way, I intended to love them, I didn't wish harm on them, I believed that I loved them. Makes sense from my perspective, right? But when it comes to action, how often was I really patient with them? How often was I willing to support them and love them and do loving things for them and to them? And it wasn't really as often as it should have been. And this is huge too. How often was I unloving? How often was I rude or selfish or condescending? I've been guilty of that a lot, I'm sorry to say. And I still can be, because I'm not perfect. Though maybe I would be a bit more patient with them if they would rinse their dishes before putting them in the dishwasher. But with Philosoul, generally I want to present my best self. But it would be a disservice to you if I always pretended like I was perfect, and that I never talked about the bad things I've done, and specifically what I've learned from them. Because that's what this channel is about. I'm using my experiences and what I've learned to try and help others. And I've talked a decent amount about things that have happened to me in other videos at other points in time, but I've been guilty of a lot too. And I still can be. I'm still human. I have my own struggles and vices. Even the lessons I share, I'm not always perfect at upholding them, for example. But anyway, I became more conscious of these things. And as I grew up, I think that my relationships with my siblings now are largely better than they were when we were kids. Now, of course, siblings can be prone to bickering and such, but I realized that it was important for me to deliberately and consciously grow out of this. There have been times where I regretted how I treated them, and I didn't want to do that anymore. So I've tried to be more conscious of this, not only with my siblings, but with all relationships, coworkers and friends too, to be more willing to do good things for them if they need it, to show love. And if they needed help, whether it be at work or in their life circumstances, whatever it is, I'll try. Because love is a verb.
I don't care what you say. I don't care what you heard. The word love. Ha! Love is a verb. Down with the DC talk.
Loving someone in action is more about them than it is you. That's what love is. It's the positive relationship between two people. And if love was more focused on the self, that would be contradictory to the very nature of love. I mean, that's a natural law if ever I heard one. And don't get me wrong, self-love is incredibly important. I talked about that in I Used to Be a Self-Bigot, for example. Self-love is one of the biggest lessons I had to learn, because if we're capable of loving someone, and we all need love, we should love ourselves too, because we're also people. But love wants to be bountiful. It wants to spread. Love wants to love. That's what it is. And thus, love must be in action. It must be what you do to show people love, to make them feel loved. This is surprisingly easy to forget, because the feeling of how you view or intend the relationship is so personal to the self, because it's your perception. And perception is notoriously hard to see past, especially break. It's too easy to get stuck in our own heads and not think about the external aspect, which is what we do. And what we do is action, the reality of how we show love to somebody, which is so important. So if I know that if I'm not really loving someone with my actions, then I can't really say that I love them. An example of when this happened to me was in my mid-teens or so. My dad told me that I wasn't handsome, and that certainly didn't affect me for the rest of my life or anything. All the way through adulthood, and I still struggle with this today, honestly. I believed I wasn't handsome. And that could be a whole other video on its own, body image and everything. But even though my dad definitely believed and even intended and felt that he loved me, would anyone in their right mind say that that was a loving action towards me? That was loving of him to do in that moment? Of course not. Plain and simple, he was not loving me in that moment. Despite his intentions, though, that's the thing. Exactly what led him to think that and say it, I'm not really sure, and that's a whole nother discussion about his upbringing and perspective and judgment and all this sort of stuff, and that's not really what I'm covering today. But the point is, he didn't really follow through on his intention, his honest intention of loving me. And he did show me love many other times, don't get me wrong, but love is something that needs to be consistent, or else it's not really true. See, if your love is conditional love, if it's based on how you feel, or if it's lower priority than something else, some other feeling or goal you have, then it's not really truly love, because if you're not always caring about how they feel and showing them these loving actions and doing things, then you don't truly care about them fully. Because if you did, you would always care about them. And I'm not trying to judge anybody or anything. Sometimes we just have our priorities wrong and we don't understand this, and that's why I'm making this video, is to try and help us all to understand this. Because again, there are times where I really did intend to love somebody and I realized I wasn't doing it in reality as much as I should. So that's what this is about. It's not about judgment, of course. But if you do something that is hurtful, that is unloving, that of course has the opposite effect of a loving action, and it can actually take power away from the loving actions you do. Even if you did love them through action, if you also hurt them, that shows them that your love isn't full. It isn't necessarily true. And of course we'll make mistakes. That's going to happen. I have, I'm sure you have, everybody has. We make mistakes, we're human. And if we truly love them, we're just going to get right back up, fix it, apologize, and keep loving them better. And even if we made that mistake, if we try to fix it, that'll just show them that we really do care, that we really do love them. Mistakes are gonna happen. You can't beat yourself up for that too much. But overall, love has to be, in terms of action, it has to be a consistent effort. You can't allow it to not be. That situation with my dad was a great example of how it's actually the other person that is a much better and stronger and more accurate representation of your love for them. See, I didn't feel loved in that moment. I wasn't being loved in that moment. Despite how my dad felt his intentions, and he probably thought that he was being honest or something, thanks, by being honest, that was loving in his eyes. Is probably what he thought. And I honestly don't believe he wanted me to feel that. I mean, I didn't expect him to say I'm the next Matt Bomer or something, but I didn't expect him to let me believe that I was unattractive. I don't think any good parent should do that to their kid. Personally, I believe everybody's beautiful in their own way, and I know that sounds cheesy, but that's honestly the perspective I have now, and maybe that can be another video. But anyway, I started to be a lot more conscious of this because I saw it in a lot of people, including myself, and I learned that I really need to change how I act in order to honestly claim that I love somebody, because it feels so wrong to say I love you when I'm not treating you with love. So I know that if I want to be able to say that I love somebody because I believe it, I know I need to back that up with action. So I really, really encourage you to be genuine and honest with yourself and ask yourself if you really do love the people that you love. And again, it's not about judgment because it catches us all. We've all done it. It's just something that really does make all the difference in the world to that person. Say bye. I love her. Thank you so much for listening. I'd love to hear your advice from your experiences in the comments. We're all growing together and it's very appreciated. You can click subscribe and then the bell icon to be notified every time I post a video. I post every Friday. Feel free to share Philisol with anyone you think will find it helpful. I want to help as many people as I can. Check out the channel page for lots more videos and other channels that I really enjoy. Until next time, much love.